The first time I noticed it, she smiled at nothing. Not the kind of nothing people pretend at, phones in hand, fake laughs, scrolling through reels, no. This was different. She was sitting near the window, evening light falling softly on her face, her tea untouched. Her eyes weren't on anything I could see. And yet she smiled, a full, real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in months. "Something funny?" I asked, loosening my tie, trying to sound casual. She looked at me, almost like I interrupted something, and then shook her head. "Nothing." I nodded. When it changed, didn't ask again. At that time, I thought it was just distance. Marriage settling into silence. Work getting in the way. Normal things people don't talk about until they become too big to ignore. I didn't know nothing had already taken my place. It started small. She would pause while talking to me, like she was listening to someone else. Sometimes she'd respond before I finished speaking. Once I asked, "Did you call the electrician?" She said, "Yeah, he said he'll come tomorrow." I blinked. "Who said?" She frowned. "You told me yesterday." I hadn't. We both let it go. That's what we were good at, letting things go. I began coming home earlier. Not because I wanted to, but because something felt off. Like walking into a room where a conversation just ended when you entered. She was lighter, not with me. Around me, she was still distant, polite, careful. But when she thought she was alone, she was different, laughing softly, whispering sometimes, pausing as if waiting for a reply. The first time I checked her phone, I expected to feel guilty. I didn't. There were no chats. No unknown numbers, no late-night calls, no hidden apps, nothing, just emptiness. And yet she wasn't alone. I started reading, at first casually, then obsessively, hallucinations, emotional detachment, dissociative states, loneliness-induced constructs. Every word felt clinical, distant, safe. This had to be something explainable, something I could fix. That's what I had always believed anyway, that everything could be fixed if approached logically. I even looked up therapists, saved numbers, didn't call. Because every time I thought of bringing it up, I remembered something a night, months ago, she had said very quietly. "Can we talk?" I was on my laptop. Deadlines, calls, life. "Not now," I had said. "Tomorrow, okay?" She had nodded. We never did. I tried after that, small things. Dinner together, asking about her day. Sitting beside her instead of across the room, she responded, but only enough to not seem rude. It felt like talking to someone who had already moved out but left their body behind. The first time she said his name, I wasn't supposed to hear it. I woke up at night. She wasn't in bed. I found her in the living room, sitting on the floor, back against the sofa. "Stupid," she whispered, smiling. A pause, then softer. "No, he's not like that." I stood there longer than I should have. "Who are you talking to?" I asked. She didn't jump, didn't panic. She just looked at me, tired. "You wouldn't understand." That was the first honest thing she had said to me in a long time. After that, I stopped pretending. I didn't confront her. Didn't accuse. I observed. Patterns formed. She was happiest when alone. She spoke in pauses. She reacted to things that never happened. And slowly, I understood. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't betrayal in the usual sense. This was replacement. One evening, I finally asked, "Are you happy?" I said. She didn't hesitate. "Yes, it shouldn't have hurt, but it did." "With me?" I asked. That's when she looked at me the way people look at questions they don't want to answer. After a long silence, she said, "You're trying now." Now I nodded slowly. "Yeah." She gave a small, almost sad smile. "I needed that before." It was no anger, no blame, just timing. Bad timing. I didn't ask about him again, didn't need to. I had already lost to someone who didn't exist. Or maybe someone who existed exactly how she needed. I made the decision quietly. Like everything else in my life. Transferred my job, finalized papers, arranged finances. I even spoke to a doctor. Not for her, but about her. Explained everything without names. He said words like treatment, support, monitoring. I listened. Then I asked, "What if she doesn't want to come back?" He didn't answer that. The night before I left, she was sitting by the window again, same spot, same light, same smile. I stood there for a moment. "Take care of yourself," I said. She nodded, like I had just reminded her of something obvious. I waited. Maybe she'd ask something. Maybe she'd stop me, maybe. "Can you turn off the light when you go?" she said softly. I looked at her. She wasn't talking to me anymore. At the airport, everything felt normal. Announcements, people rushing, calls, life moving, like mine hadn't just ended quietly. I checked my phone once before boarding. No messages. Of course, somewhere between takeoff and silence, I realized something. She wasn't broken. She had found a world where she was seen, heard, loved. I just wasn't part of it. Maybe I never really was. I didn't leave because she was ill. I left because I had already disappeared weeks later, in a different country, in a different apartment. I sometimes think about that evening light, about the way she smiled at nothing. And I wonder, was it ever nothing, or was it just Never me.